When we'll return to one of our top stories, that's Johnson & Johnson. They're settling in a New York opioid lawsuit. And now 70% of drug overdoses involve an opioid, either prescription or synthetic. So the U.S. government declared it a public health emergency more than 3 years ago. The opioid crisis started in the late 90s when doctors began to prescribe them at greater rates in the belief they were not addictive. By 2018, around 10 million Americans were misusing the medication. Addicts who can't get the prescriptions often turn to heroin, which is cheaper and easier to obtain. Heroin use doubled over this period. The U.S. Department of Health says more than 130 Americans die every day from opioid-related overdoses. That's 48,000 per year. Let's discuss this with William Soliman, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Accreditation Council for Medical Affairs. He's joining us from New York. Thanks for your time with us. So Johnson & Johnson settling for $230 million, but they're not admitting any wrongdoing. What is your reaction to this?
So look, ultimately, in the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what's going to change? The issue here that I see here is, although the companies have settled, what will they change in their process to prevent another crisis like this from happening again? I think that's the key. You know, ultimately, Johnson & Johnson, like you said, they're not admitting any wrongdoing. So they're not really admitting to the fact that there was something broken in the process. And I think we as a public, whether we're in the U.S. or abroad, we need to ask ourselves, what do these pharmaceutical companies have to do differently when it comes to how they communicate information to healthcare providers?
Right. So let me put that question back at you, because as you're saying, the situation won't be resolved with a $230 million payment. So what is it that needs to be done? What's not being done to stop this epidemic and this crisis?
One of the things that it's the biggest secret that people aren't aware of in the public in terms of the pharmaceutical industry is that the people that are out there that are really educating doctors on drugs, on devices, are not actually sales reps. They're medical science liaisons. They're medical affairs professionals. And these individuals have a significant impact on the education of a physician once they've graduated medical school. And from our perspective, those individuals should have a credential. They should be certified like any other profession. The pharma industry is still, behind on the 8 ball when it comes to that. There should be some kind of minimum core competencies met to ensure that we're informing prescriber decision appropriately.
Well, look, Johnson & Johnson is not going to a jury trial in New York, but we know that there are other trials in other states like California as well as Virginia. I'm wondering what you think the outcomes of those cases will mean for the bigger picture of opioid litigation across the U.S.
I mean, I think ultimately these companies are going to want to settle. So they're going to work out some type of deal with the attorney general's offices. But I think, what's important is what do we do with that money? So a lot of that money can be used for abatement or mitigation of some of the risks. I think education is a big one to help prevent opioid use in future generations, make sure that the younger folks understand the dangers of opioid drugs.
Thank you so much, William Soliman, for speaking to us from New York. Appreciate your time.